Pet Matters and the Collaborative Vet YouTube and podcast. I'm your host, Michael Dr. T. Tequila, and I have a special guest. I actually cold reached out to her because we're in the same Angel Network group. And what surprised me, Krystina, is that it was the questions you asked at the vein meeting that impressed me. And I said, this person knows her stuff, so she'd be great on the show. And so that's why I reached out to her. So my special guest today is Dr. Krystina Stadler. She's a board-certified veterinary radiologist. She does speaking gigs, she does research, and she's authored many publications. She's also an entrepreneur. She founded 2 businesses. So she's the founder and CEO of Corridor, and she's the founder and president of Southside Veterinary Imaging. And we'll get into those businesses. I'll let her talk about them because that's her gig, and we'll get into those businesses later. But thanks so much for being on the show, Krystina.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so what I'd love to start with, typically with every guest, is what I call their origin story. Is how did you get into veterinary medicine? And then what sort of life changes or decisions led to you becoming a radiologist?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I maybe don't have the classic vet med story in terms of why I became a vet. So I initially started college and I wanted to be a music teacher. So a little bit of a dynamic shift. And my father is an engineer and was really always pushing me to take chemistry and science and things like that. So I had to take some gen recs in science and like inorganic chemistry. I was really good at, and I really, really enjoyed it. And so then I kind of got into being a science nerd and was like, okay, maybe I'll flip the script. Maybe I'll do science. Maybe I'll stay in the teaching realm or whatever. Then kind of my junior year, undergrad, I was debating what I was going to do. And I've always liked pets, but like never really thought about that as like the passion in my career. And then the two kind of coincided where, I don't know, I was just having a conversation with someone one day and they're like, oh, I'm pre-vet. And I was like, I didn't even consider that before. Needless to say, and then they said something to me that really resonated where they're like, oh, it's really tough to get in, which to me translates into, oh, I should absolutely drop everything I'm doing and apply for this because why not? That seems like really good odds that little old me will go to vet school. Anyway, so I think like pets, like science, hard to get in. This kind of trifecta came to be in my early 20s, and I decided to pursue vet med. So I actually, the first year, which is not surprising to anybody, didn't get in a state school, and I went to Ireland for a year. So I did a first year vet school in Ireland, and then I came back I'm Illinois native, outside of Chicago. So then I came back and I finished in Illinois. In terms of radiology, I had assisted at a clinic before vet school and kind of got an idea of the general practice life. And although I appreciate it and respect it so much, I was kind of like, I really like the diagnostic end. And so I kind of leaned heavy on that and thought I would do some sort of diagnostics, whether or not that was pathology or radiology. And happened to be pretty lucky in vet school and get a job as an after-hours radiology technician and kind of get an in with the radiology group. And my first radiology mentor, Bob O'Brien, was faculty there at the time. So we started working on some projects and doing research while I was in vet school, and just really dug it. Like I love black and white to begin with. Like that's where I'm at in my space, and I love how we can kind of make a story and interpret and help the whole clinical pathway of a pet based on imaging. You know, it's just so cool. I know it's one piece of the puzzle, but I always found it so fascinating that my mantra is I'm a clinician first and a radiologist second, but I always thought it's so cool that we can take what we're seeing or what we hear in the clinical exam and the blood work and kind of integrate that into our imaging story and kind of make a nice little puzzle piece for this patient to move forward in their diagnostic and therapeutic journey.
Wow. Couple things resonated with me is, like, I'm a musician as well, and this is what I tell people, and I don't know if you agree. I think the vets are kind of like the cooks of the medicine world because we're doing off-label, like we're like the artists of medicine, right? Yeah. It's like, so I always think that that the vets I know that do very well have this artistic flair, and they have a second side of them that do things. Whether it's poetry, music, art, anything. But there's that other side, the other hemisphere they're utilizing. And I always look at veterinarian, which probably makes us quirky because we're weird scientists.
Yeah.
My brother and my wife are very hardcore scientists, and they're very, like, I was going to buy my brother a chopping board that does it in centimeter cube because he's so precise that way. And then it's like, I'm a little pinch of this, little pinch of this. Why don't we try this drug, right? And I find that is very, it's very unique to our profession, and I think it solidifies it solidifies a lot of things about veterinarians. The second thing is your mantra. That's very intriguing to me, and I'd love you to describe that more. But before that, let's talk about when you said, "Listen, it's hard to get in." That drives. So that explains to me that your entrepreneurial spirit, right? Because it's like this is what drives you and everything like that. So I found that very interesting. So let's talk about your businesses. So your South Sound Veterinary Imaging is a service from what I went to the website. So as I understand it, is you do mobile ultrasound. You have a crew there, a bunch of vets there, about 8 or so, and some technicians, and you're able to do mobile ultrasound. You're able to do teleradiology. And consults and everything like that. So why don't we talk about that business, and then we'll segue into Corridor, because I'm really curious about that as well.
Yeah, so South Sound Vet Imaging, I founded in 2019 just because I live out in the Pacific Northwest. I live kind of south of Seattle, hence the name of the company. And there was a really big need for us to kind of help the clinicians, both in the general practice and the specialty world that were practicing out here. And so I kind of developed a little side gig while working full-time as a radiologist in a large specialty clinic, and helped provide some ultrasound services for that. But circle 4 years now, we've evolved. We certainly do provide mobile ultrasound services for people in the area, and I do some in-house consulting work as well for specialty clinics in the region. But we also now have grown outside our region teleradiology. So I say it's international. We have Canadians and North Americans, so I guess it's international in our teleradiology group. And that's really where we're flourishing and growing now, because we're kind of bringing what we had as a niche group here out to more people that I can't reach on a day-to-day locally. And yeah, like you said, we have about 14 radiologists on team. Not all of them are Pacific Northwest based. They're all North American trained radiologists, and most reside within the states, kind of coast to coast. But yeah, we have a great team. I love them. I think they're all clinician radiologists, which kind of circling back to the mantra is huge for me. Like, I want to be helpful. Like, I think, if you go into taking rads and you have 10 differentials, and then your rad report has those 10 differentials there, like what help have we been? Sometimes we can't, like, sometimes there's limitations, and I usually like have a little disclosure statement like, hey man, I really want to help, but I can't. But most of the time they're like, we've done this for a long time. We've seen a lot of cases. So anecdotal and knowing what's been published helps us kind of pigeonhole the top 3 differentials into. And like, I'm always like, I will die on certain hills. Like, I will commit to a diagnosis before, like, I'm more comfortable committing to a diagnosis or 2 than like a laundry list of 10.
That's awesome, because I get that with pathology. And I usually tell clients, I go, we're going to get a laundry list of differentials.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, you've got to look at the whole clinical picture. Like, that is, like, if you look at a table in a book, like, those are the 20 differentials for this, But if you have, especially, that's where we lean in really hard on our vet partners. Like, if you've given me abnormal blood work and you've given me physical exam findings, duration of time, etc., like, we can narrow that list pretty well based on what we're seeing with what you've provided,
Wait a sec. Do you actually ask for like or do you when you talk about blood work stuff, you're asking that's written in the history, or that you actually ask them for the actual results?
So written in the history is preferred. I don't want to make a lot of specialists, teleconsultation specialists out there hate me with getting 100-page reports to read over. So cliff notes are preferred just because, efficiency purposes. So like if liver enzymes are elevated, like it's nice to know which ones and what their values were and things like that. If you send me your whole, like the 2-page sheet from your lab printout, I'll scroll through it too. It's just when we get into big, this patient's 19 years old and I have 19-year-old stack of paper, that is an unrealistic thing to achieve, to look through the novel. So I think all specialists out there like to know clinically relevant to right now histories.
I get it, but that's awesome. It inspires me, and pathology classmates of mine would say, write as big as history as you can, right?
Yeah.
And then we look in the little IDEX box. Well, we don't have much space to write this stuff, right? And then we're really bad. Round lesion, right? 2 centimeter diameter, left side body, right? That's it, right? It's like
the more you can, it's an art. And so training the art of history is a meat, because there's certainly too much where you can get lost in the weeds, but there's too little where we can't really help you if coughing or vomiting's the history, how long, what's the characteristics, etc. And so that's an art. And I think no one has really solved the art of that. And we also understand that it might not be you, the vet, putting in the history. Sometimes there's somebody in the support staff that may or may not be hearing it from 5 different telephones, but that's where you establish a good partnership. So if there's something a little bit odd, you make a note, or you give them a call and say, hey, can you send me something on this? This is a little weird. I just need a little more meat on this.
No, that's awesome. That is, I'm part of the Collaborative Care Coalition, and that is that's the essence of what you want to do. You want to partner with the primary, and you want to have the specialty because it does lead to better medicine. And I think
Agreed.
that's awesome. That's an awesome approach.